A contradiction occurs when two statements oppose each other. They cannot both be true at the same time. Recognizing contradictions is important when studying any text, especially religious texts like the Bible. Contradictions can lead to confusion and doubt. They challenge our understanding of the text and its author. Examining these contradictions can be unsettling. However, it can also lead to a deeper understanding. The Bible strongly condemns lying. Proverbs 12:22 states, "The Lord detests lying lips. Honesty is integral to a righteous life." Proverbs 6:16 through 19 lists 7 things the Lord hates, including a lying tongue. God despises lies and considers them an abomination. 1 Kings chapter 22 presents a perplexing narrative. Ahab, the king of Israel, prepares for war. He seeks guidance from prophets. God sends a lying spirit to deceive Ahab. This leads to Ahab's demise. The passage states that God allowed a deceiving spirit to influence the prophets. This divine intervention resulted in Ahab ignoring sound advice and facing a tragic fate. The apparent contradiction between God's hatred of lies and his use of deception in 1 Kings chapter 22 demands careful consideration. Does this incident suggest that God's stance on lying is not absolute? Some argue that God, in his sovereignty, can use any means necessary to accomplish his will. This includes using deception when it serves a greater purpose. Others maintain that God remains truthful even in his judgments. They interpret the passage metaphorically, emphasizing God's ultimate control over all events. This challenging passage highlights the complexity of understanding God's actions. It prompts us to grapple with our understanding of truth and deception. God is love, a core principle. The New Testament emphasizes God's nature as love. 1 John chapter 4 verse 8 proclaims, "God is love." This statement forms the foundation of the Christian understanding of God. Love is not merely an attribute of God, but his very essence. This concept permeates the New Testament. The shadow of divine displeasure. The Bible emphasizes God's love, but also his capacity for anger and judgment. Romans 9:13 states, "Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated." This verse presents a stark contrast. Psalm 11:5 states, "The Lord tests the righteous but hates the wicked." These verses challenge the notion of God as solely benevolent. Can love and hate coexist in God? The Bible's depiction of God as both loving and capable of hate presents a complex theological puzzle. Some argue that God's hate is righteous anger directed at sin and injustice. This perspective emphasizes God's perfect holiness and his opposition to evil. Others suggest that God's love remains constant, even in his judgment. How can a God whose very essence is described as love also harbor hate? Does love, in its purest form, contain the capacity for hate? Or are we seeing two opposing messages here? The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 14:33 that God is not the author of confusion, but these conflicting messages about love, hate and lies seem to generate just that, confusion. Thanks for watching, and remember, facts are what matter.